I'm happy to try to answer the question while noting that you sidestepped mine. But the...
Wait. Wait. No, there's no demagogy.
It's now on my time.
No, someone has to get up, someone who clapped has to get up and say what I sidestepped. Who's going to be first? Come on.
Let us.
Come on. You. What did I sidestep?
He asked you what the moral foundation was for your belief system coming from evolution.
I'm going to ask at this time, we save the questions from the floor when we get to that point. But at this time,
don't be one of that clap anything crowd.
At this time, let's have a response here, and I'm going to ask both of you to keep your questions and the response just a bit more brief.
I don't ask you to clap anything.
Christopher, I think if you're challenging the Christian theology, you've got to state the theology first and then say what's wrong with it. You can't pick out one strand of it, the creator God, benevolent, supervisory, and then say, well, look, if he's benevolent, how come the world looks like this? Because Christian theology has an account of what's happened to the world. In other words, in Christian theology, the idea is that there was a time, maybe an ideal time, but nevertheless, let's call it the Garden of Eden, when things were, if you will, good, in harmony. Then there is a terrible calamity that separates man from God and has in man a stance of, you could almost call it, instinctive and obdurate rebellion against God. I think you know the emotion. You've been exhibiting it all night. So you got this.
Let's hear a response.
Well, no, I haven't had a chance to answer.
30 more seconds.
Okay. The point here is that the world is out of whack, and according to Christian theology, to some degree, it has been jettisoned by God. You could call that the expulsion from the Garden of Eden, which is to say that you and I are to some degree on our own pal, and that means that a Hitler, a hurricane, a tsunami is going to be unleashed in the world without, if you will, God being a cosmic bellhop to jump in and stop it at every juncture. So that's Christian theology. You can refute it as a whole, but I don't think you refute it effectively by just refuting part A while leaving out the rest of the story.
Well, so then my question would be very simple. Still willing to clap practically anything.
Well, actually, it's my turn to ask you.
Do you or any of those who clapped believe that there was a time when there was an Edenic utopia from which we fell or were expelled, that forms a real part of human history, and that all of us are guilty of that fall? Who here
I'll
believes
answer that.
Who believes that? You do. That's important. Do you believe it?
Let's hear the response.
I can't ask them. I can at least ask you. What reason do you have to believe that?
Well, first of all, I believe it, but I will say that within Christianity over 2,000 years, there is a debate over whether some of these things being described are to be taken literally or metaphorically. But let me just point out this. In the Western tradition, here is Rousseau imagining natural man long before the advent of civilization. Here are Locke and Hobbes and Machiavelli and others talking about the state of nature. You've never been there, and neither have I. So you have a completely secular project, which is not dismissed, I take it, by you as absurd, of positing what things were like in the original condition, and then how things got to be as messed up as they are. Christianity is responding to a fact that the way we are is not the way things ought to be. And there have been numerous attempts to account for that. Why are you treating the Christian explanation as prima facie absurd while admitting all the others as worthy of thoughtful consideration?
To say, there's a world of difference between saying that there is an innate freedom or a right that belongs to us, or to say, in the very exaggerated tones of Rousseau, in the opening of his famous essay, that man is born free but is everywhere in chains. In other words, that there is no one who has the right to oppress or to deny freedom to a person. There's all the difference in the world between that and what you stated firmly, which was that there was an Edenic utopia from which, by our fault, we fell, and
Well, Rousseau
to which
says
we
exactly
owe, and
the
for which
same
we
thing.
owe, and for which we owe a king, an unelected monarch, a supreme being, an absolute tyrant, an explanation.
Let me
Because
intervene.
otherwise we can be punished indefinitely for our fall.
Let me
That is
intervene.
that is not a Rousseauian view, and you have no right to confuse the two.
Well, you're
If,
stating...
ladies and gentlemen, you should